Hi, I'm Dave Sherwood, the CEO of Bibliu. I'm here to introduce you to Campus Convos, the podcast where we discuss all things tech and education. Hope you enjoy it. Please subscribe on wherever you listen to your podcasts, and please give a share to others interested in the space.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Campus Convos. Joining me this week to talk about college accreditation is Richard Thompson, the Associate Vice President at New Mexico Tech. And I was lucky enough to visit New Mexico Tech about a year ago, roughly. I'd driven from Western Texas over through to Albuquerque and stopped over at an MT on the way. And it's a really, really beautiful part of the world, like New Mexico in general, of course, but the drive on the New Mexico side coming into New Mexico Tech was really stunning. So you're quite spoiled in the beautiful environment you live in, Richard.
It certainly is. It certainly is.
Well, today, as I said, we're going to talk about college accreditation. It'd be interesting to hear a bit more about your thoughts in terms of interesting trends happening at the moment in terms of tech, like demographic trends, anything in the regulatory side, the DOE, etc. Yeah, just interested to hear thoughts on what the big topics are at the moment, Richard.
Well, Tech is a research powerhouse. A lot of grant funded work going on here, and so the current situation with federal funding has folks very concerned about what's going on. There was recent word about cancellation of a lot of DOE grants, and for the first time, New Mexico Tech really took a hit. Some of the earlier waves of grant cancellations wasn't really affecting our faculty here much, but this last round from DOE really did, because we do a lot of work here on water resources, a lot of things related to carbon capture and things of that nature, and that's what these grants were related to, and so yeah, it's a tough time right now. And then you couple that with, the demographic cliff that we're looking at here in the U.S., with the numbers of high school students decreasing, particularly here in New Mexico, it's going to be tough. And the students that we're getting are coming out of high school less prepared than they've been over the recent past. And so there are a lot of things to be concerned about. But, you keep going, you keep putting in those grant proposals, you keep teaching those students, you keep recruiting those students, and you keep following your mission. So that's what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, there are a lot of headwinds, really, aren't there? This is a challenging time.
Yes.
In terms of, I gather a lot of institutions, the dual enrollment, dual credit population is growing enough to offset some of these other things for now, but it doesn't really feel necessarily a sustainable way to offset them. And what's the dual credit, dual enrollment picture look like at NMT?
It's not that large compared to other places that I've been, and primarily I would say it's because we're in such an isolated area. When I was a dean at upstate New York in Albany, there was a major high school right across the street from our campus, and others spread throughout the area. And we did a lot of the dual credit, both teaching the high school students on campus, which is what we do here at Tech, but also training the high school teachers and certifying them to teach on their own campuses. And here at Tech, we're primarily, we've got the one small high school here in town, and at the moment, all the dual credit courses, for the most part, they're in mathematics, some in engineering, and they're being taught on campus. So the students come to our campus, sit in our classrooms. And until we expand the number of disciplines that we're teaching in, and also move on site for other high schools, and this would allow us to maybe move to the Albuquerque area and so forth. Until we're able to do that, we're really not going to be seeing a lot of credits produced from the dual credit program.
And that's like in the plan at the moment then, to expand the number of courses that are in the program?
Well, we are seriously thinking about it. Socorro High School just last year was certified by the state as an early college high school, and so it has some freedom and flexibility to get their students involved in college coursework earlier than just say their senior year, which which is what it's been for the most part. And so we would expect that to be an increase in students wanting a wider range of coursework. And so we work very closely with the school district. We have a faculty member who serves on the school board. And so we work very closely with their administration, with their teachers, and we're starting to think about ways that we can do that. But, in terms of our overall topic, accreditation, we have to make sure that whatever we're doing and whatever we're putting our name on as a New Mexico Tech course, that it's the same quality as every other course that's taught on campus by our full-time faculty. And so we've got to make sure that we work out all those processes and procedures along the way.
And tell me a bit more about the accreditation process, and then also, I guess, to your point, like sort of the quality assurance, quality controls, these kind of things. So, yeah, run me through just the high-level process of like formulating the idea for a new course through to actually having students doing the course.
Courses are very straightforward, but let's think about a degree program of that. So if we're looking to start a new degree program, first of all, we got to make sure, is there a market out there in the first place? And then secondly, and almost as important, is do we have the resources, both physical resources, financial, and human resources? Do we have the expertise on campus to offer a quality program in that area? And so if the answers of all of those are yes, then we start internally with the faculty proposing the program, proposing what the curriculum would look like. If it's a case of where we might need new faculty hires, how would we go about that? How would we fund all of that? And we move it through our shared governance process. A proposal would come out of a department, maybe in consultation with their dean, and then go to the faculty's curriculum committee. And that's made up of faculty from across the campus, a wide range of disciplines. And they're going to be asking, again, those same questions. Can we offer a quality program? And is there a student market out there for it? And if it's an undergraduate program, the next step would be to go to the faculty senate. If it's a graduate program, well, then there's one more step before that. There's a graduate committee. So it's sort of their version of the curriculum committee. And they look into a little bit more of the details related to graduate programs, such as, could we support master's or PhD level research projects and so forth. But if the program's given the blessing at that point, goes to the faculty senate, and now you have everyone on campus, and also a wide range of administrators and staff members as well, and it goes through, it's discussed. Sometimes it's very simple. Everyone says, yes, this is something we can do. This is something we should do. And it's approved right off the bat and moves on. Other times I've seen programs come back 2 or 3 times for faculty senate discussions because there were concerns and other follow-up that needed to be done, some more due diligence. But ultimately, when you get that approval, then it's signed off on by our Board of Regents, and then we go externally. We have to get state approval, and then we also have to go to our regional accreditor, our institutional accreditor. And that's where I would play the bigger role, being in my position as the Associate VP for Academic Affairs. And that is basically laying out the argument that we've made all these steps along the way, but doing it to the Higher Learning Commission. They're really going to know, does this program fit with our mission? I mean, that's criterion 1 for accreditation is mission. They're going to want to know, do we have the resources to offer a good program? How do we determine that? How are we going to monitor that program and assess it? And then what's the sustainability of the program? Sometimes you might have a grant or something that helps you get a program off the ground, but what happens when that grant expires? So they're going to be asking all of those questions. So it's my job to put all that information together, submit it to HLC, and then they ultimately say yay or nay on that. And at that point, then we can fully start to recruit and accept students into the program. So it could take the better part of a year sometimes to go from the initial ideas to being fully approved all the way up the line. Other times, if it's tweaks to programs, or you mentioned courses, we can run a pilot of a course, anytime. We have standing courses in the catalog, physics 4089 topics, and then we'll just run it and see, are the students interested, and how well that work. And you might run a course as a special topics for a semester or two, then put it in the catalog for real, and then that might be your way towards building a new program down the road for that.
And with a new course, like say the degree program, the course was like basically completely not connected to the degree program. There's no constraint on what a new course could be.
So the answer is yes. So there are no constraints. Yeah. Sometimes, I've done it in the past where it was, a special topics course related to a research project. Something interesting is out there. Students wanted to learn more about it. And I said, okay, well, let's try to put a course together and we'll do it. And it might have only run one time, because it was just the special nature of it, or just the timing was right. But other times, it's a way to test out the new course to see if it's something to maybe fit in as a new elective option in one of your degree programs. But no, you've got a lot of flexibility to do that. But if you're going to continue to offer a course, then you need to ultimately move into that formal stage where it becomes a real standing course in the catalog, connected in some way to some kind of a program.
And are there specific courses that have to be included in a degree program, like the HLC or the state? Like if you had a degree program and you started changing all of the courses, at some point it's not the original degree program anymore, right?
Exactly. And for both the state and particularly for HLC, if you're making significant numbers or amounts of change, you have to report that as well. And get approval for that. One of the things that I do is I monitor the curriculum proposals that come through, and I have a spreadsheet where I keep track of the changes that are made to various degree programs. Maybe a course or two is added to a program, or maybe some prerequisites are removed, or what have you. And when we reach a certain fraction, I believe for HLC, it might be 25%. If 25% of the program has been changed, we then have to go and report that and explain what we've done and why. If we make, one course, we substitute courses. Mm-hmm. Course A is no longer required, but course B is now required. That just goes in my spreadsheet, and we don't have to change that. We don't have to report that to anyone. But if it's a significant change, especially if you're adding credit hours, or if you start to change the nature of the program, like I believe like the words you used, if it's no longer the program that was originally proposed, that becomes a much, much bigger lift. And you have to really justify why you're making all those changes, but still calling it what you called it before.
That makes sense. 25% feels about right, where it gives you and your team some flexibility to add in interesting new developments, whatever. But also, then if it's above that 25%, it is genuinely probably changing the overall structure. So, yes. And do you often have HLC or the state reject proposals for new programs?
In my time here, and I've been here going on 2.5 years now, I haven't had that with HLC. One issue that I have seen, and I was sort of secondary to the process, was with the state. They try to have, or they do have a common course catalog for all of the lower division courses, the first year, second year courses that would count towards general education. Mm-hmm. And they want it to be standardized so that if I start my career at Tech and go through my freshman year, but then I transfer to UNM in Albuquerque, well, I don't want to have to retake first year English. I took it here. And so there's all of that. And so if you want a course to be granted the status of a general ed course and therefore be accepted by all the other state institutions, you have to formally apply for that. You have to take that course through a process. And I've seen cases where we have submitted courses, and the committee, which is usually made up of faculty and administrators from among the state institutions, the committee will kick it back. And they will say things like, well, this doesn't seem general enough to go from your institution to another one. It seems very, very specific to your institution, or, things of that nature. Or we're not quite sure how you're satisfying these general ed learning outcomes. Can you give us more information on that? So it's really go back and regroup and submit again for that. And that's course by course. When it comes to submitting degree programs, there's such a long runway for that, and there's so much due diligence along the way that you have to do. It'd be very surprising that you got all the way to the state, and then or even further, all the way to an institutional accreditor, and they said no. That's usually going to happen somewhere along the way.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I guess, rather than maybe reject, I meant that they require significant changes or suggest significant changes. It makes sense. And is there any, maybe at the state level, is there any political intervention, like pro-DEI, anti-DEI, all this kind of stuff?
I've never run across that. And, New Mexico's a blue state, so we haven't had any of those issues. But I certainly see in the news, and I have colleagues in other parts of the country where they are having to deal with those sorts of issues. Yeah, well, but fortunately, to date, we have not.
Interestingly, in Florida, it's a bit of a side, not tied to accreditation, but I gather, I gather essentially the new college presidents there are political appointees essentially. So right now, obviously, it's a Republican state, so we're seeing basically Republican college presidents being appointed. But it could, Florida's been Democratic in the past. It could swing the other way. It's a very bizarre time to have political appointees running academic institutions.
It certainly is. And I grew up in Florida. I'm a graduate of the University of Florida. And I do a lot of this head shaking thing that I'm doing right now.
Well, you must be glad to be operating in New Mexico rather than there at the moment, I must think.
It's easier to work here, yes.
And what else is happening on the accreditation side? On the new, I can't remember the specific name of the regulation, but in the big, beautiful bill, how there'll be a link between salaries and tuition costs, loans, essentially. Is that going to impact accreditation at all in terms of you're thinking about which courses to create and potentially which to pause? I guess community college tuition's quite affordable anyway, so they might not be caught up as much into that.
Right. I think where that shows up in terms of accreditation is the student outcomes. The accreditors, in my case here, and we just went through our comprehensive 10-year reaccreditation, just finished up last spring. They want to know about student outcomes, and so we talked a lot about what our graduates do, what they go on to do, either if they were an undergraduate here and then they moved on somewhere else for graduate school, or if they got their PhD here and then went into industry or science or teaching at an institution. And so it's important that you track those outcomes and that you have those good stories to tell. And that you show overall, and it always comes back to mission. What are we training our graduates to do, and are they going out into the world and doing that? And at the PhD level, we're turning out geologists and hydrologists and mining engineers who are staying right here in the state, and they're helping to improve the lives of folks throughout New Mexico and improve the business opportunities and so forth. That reflects back on us. For the undergraduates, what are the kinds of careers are they going into, or are they, pursuing higher education in our state or others? And so, we really look at that. When you talk about the kinds of jobs that a graduate gets, well, we're, highly focused on STEM. So that makes us look good when you're turning out these engineers. Yeah. I've been on campuses where, we were turning out elementary school teachers, social workers, and folks like that who were doing great work. They're truly needed in their communities. However, we don't, in this country at least, value them to the level in terms of salary that we do for STEM and engineering fields and others. And so that can actually work against you. But the way that you handle that, if you're talking about accreditation or anything else, is you go back to mission again. And those institutions where I was prior, that was a very strong piece of the mission, was turning out those teachers, those social workers, counselors, things of that nature. And so that's what you look at. But yeah, you're right. If it comes down to simply looking at, tables of numbers and the salaries of your graduates, there's so much more to the story.
Totally. I heard, I think it was at AFIT, a conference I go to recently, a bunch of college presidents talking about how sort of like early childcare studies had been abolished at a lot of those institutions. Like the people that were talking, they said they no longer offer the program. So there's a lot of complication there in terms of using these stats and trying to use them to force change in which courses are taught and which courses are not, right? Yeah. In the same way that you guys, as being a tech college, look really great in these stats, and that's good, but it doesn't. Yeah, it depends how you look at these things, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And the major employers close by where people go to, I gather obviously there's significant mining. You guys were saying when I was there that the movie industry is quite big.
Oh,
not far away as well, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Albuquerque, Santa Fe, up that area. But there have also been some movies filmed right here on campus. And by campus, if you remember the way things look, we have the mountain just to the west of campus, and there's another something like 40 square miles of desert out there. And if you need a set that looks like Afghanistan, okay, we've got it out there, and those sorts of things. So yeah, there's a lot of things that are like that. We actually, a year ago, through some grant funding we had with some state agencies, we ran a course on some of the technical aspects of the performing arts. Sound, lighting. It was focused more on theater, so we also, we're looking at theater rigging and all of that. And we brought in professionals from the area, and then we had our own students from campus. We had folks from the community, and it worked very, very well. And so we've been thinking about, is there some way that we could sustain a program like that beyond the grant funding that we have? But yeah, that's one of the new and exciting areas. Along also with New Mexico, we have all of the national labs here. In Albuquerque, we have Sandia National Lab. We have the Air Force Research Lab. We have Los Alamos up in the northern part of the state. White Sands Missile Range down in the southeastern corner. So a lot of our students will go there. And a lot of our master's and some PhD students come from those areas. And they may have been hired in with a bachelor's, and now they want to get their master's, or maybe they want to get a management degree to maybe move up in management in one of the labs. And so they will come back to us and take some programs either on campus, but most likely online, because of how spread out across the state they are.
Yeah, so it's super interesting. It's a fascinating state to think of, like, all those different types of industries together. I mean, people have to go and visit. It's a very beautiful area and sort of hard to describe it on a podcast. But the other thing I was wondering, non-credit, is that significant in New Mexico Tech, and how does the accreditation work on non-credit?
Probably the closest we have to that are courses that we refer to as our community ed. Mm-hmm. Some of these courses, well, let me give you the range. Some they range from, say, wellness and recreation courses. So you might take an indoor soccer course or something, and we have courses in the fine arts, more along the lines of the hands-on sort of creative arts. So pottery, stained glass, lots and lots of painting courses, photography, things of that nature. And some students will take some of those courses to satisfy general ed requirements. There is a fine arts requirement in the New Mexico general ed requirements. And so they might take a painting course to satisfy that, and they might take it for 1 credit. And the person at the easel next to them learning to paint might be a retiree who's living here in Socorro or in the area, and they've come in and maybe they're getting credit for the course, maybe they're not. and for them, it's just more of a personal fulfillment kind of a thing. And so it's a wide range of those kinds of courses. That, I think, on our campus would be the only such non-credit types of things. And if they're taking it for non-credit, it's most likely that they're a community member coming in. They pay a much reduced tuition and course fees and do that. But for the students, they're either using it, like I said, to satisfy those gen ed requirements, or they need one more credit to be full time, or something like that. And so instead of adding a one more math course, well, let's add a watercolor painting course or something. Give them a little bit of a breather. And so that's the important role that those courses play for our students.
It's so interesting speaking to different institutions about these things. I was speaking to a Reading area community college the other day, and non-credit is like half of their student body there. So yeah, just really? There's so much variation. And what about, so obviously VPAA, associate VPAA, what challenges have you had trying to introduce new ideas, change, maybe in context of accreditation, maybe just anything?
Well, I think it's not a new concept. Accreditation's been around forever. Assessment and the importance of assessment has been out there, but you still, every cycle, you have to convince folks that this is something that we need to do because of the positive outcomes that it brings to us. For some folks, the best you can do is say, well, look, if we don't do this, then we're going to get in trouble with the accreditors. That rolls into financial aid issues, blah, blah, blah. That's the big stick. And if that's the only way you can get them to turn in those assessment reports or what have you, well, then that's what you have to use. Fortunately, it wasn't that bad for me here coming in. I came in 2 years ago primarily to help move them through the accreditation process. And I took it very much as a teaching opportunity. And, I went around campus meeting with various departments and other groups and showing them the benefits of going through an assessment process and then an overall accreditation process. For, half of our campus are engineers, and they're all accredited by ABET. And they do it every, I think it's a 7-year cycle or so. I don't remember. They're used to doing that, but I don't know how much of we're doing it because of the improvements it brings. We're doing it because if you're engineering, you have to be ABET accredited. Well, what I've tried to do even in those cases is say, look at the feedback you're getting from those ABET accreditors and look at how you can use that feedback to then improve your programs, improve your facilities, and so forth. And it's campus wide and not just academics, but the entire campus wide when you're talking about an institutional accreditor like the Higher Learning Commission. And so my biggest job was to get out and sell that idea and convince folks that we do this because of the benefits, and ultimately it benefits our students, and that's why we're here. So some departments were easier than others, but you do the best that you can. But I was proud of the campus overall, the self-study report we put together, the evidence we had, and for the fact that as opposed to other campuses I've been on in the past, we did not get dinged whatsoever in terms of our assessment programs. We actually got very positive feedback about that. I've been on other campuses, 10 years ago, we did a self-study when I was in upstate New York, and we knew from day one that we were going to get hammered when it came to assessment, and we were just trying to do all we could to get something in place. They had the foundations in place here at Tech, and so we just built on that over those 2 years of putting the program together for HLC. Went very, very well.
That's great. Yeah, change is always a challenge. It's something I think about with my team sometimes. We have some great new idea, but timing is at the right time, and there's all sorts of complications. But ultimately, it's for the best. Also, thinking of, I think we discussed this a bit in person, but artificial intelligence obviously is changing work in a big way. How we work, I guess, not unlike when the search engines became really big a long time ago. And so Are there any courses that will have open book or the ability to use AI in assessments and exams? And more broadly, how are you thinking about AI from a teaching and accreditation and course building perspective?
We're right here at the dawn of the new age and trying to figure out what to do. Sort of the process that I see play out is, first of all, when you've got any kind of new technology that comes along, everyone freaks out. This is going to ruin how we teach, and the big concern, well, students are going to use this to cheat. And that seems to be where everyone goes right off the bat when these new ideas come out. And after a while, people start to realize, well, wait a second, there's more to it than that. And we can handle the student cheating issues. Let's focus more on the usefulness of the technology. And so whether it was the use of calculators, back in the in the 70s when they came out, graphing calculators were a big thing when I was just starting to teach.
Yeah.
And I've taught math, algebra, calculus, and a lot of that is take this function and graph it and describe it. Well, now you just simply type it in and it gives you the graph. So we had to figure out, okay, if they've got the graph, what can they do with it? So we had to figure out, well, now we can actually go a little deeper with our teaching. We're just at the very edge of folks trying to figure out how to do that with AI. And so we have some scattered faculty across campus who are starting to talk about that, starting to see what's going on in their disciplines, starting to give talks on campus to their colleagues. We're starting to bring folks to campus either in person or virtually to give professional development talks on ways to make use of AI in research. And again, that's maybe where folks are starting to focus at first, but then that leads into the teaching of graduate students. What kind of constraints are we going to have, say, on the writing of a dissertation if they're making use of AI? What areas are acceptable to use it? Maybe the data analysis and so forth. What areas are not acceptable? The actual writing of the dissertation, where a student is supposed to be showing how they've grown into a scientist who can communicate, and an engineer that can lay out the arguments for what they're proposing. And if all of that came from AI, then they haven't proved that. And so departments are struggling with what sort of guardrails do we put on that process? And then, of course, just basically how you bring it into the classroom, maybe in an undergraduate setting, and how does an instructor make use of it for teaching? And then what are the uses that students can put to it? And I think it's encouraging that for as many faculty who are adamant that thou shalt not use AI in any context for this class, others are saying thou shalt use AI in this kind of an activity or an assignment, and show me how you used it to come to this conclusion. So they're taking the approach of, all right, we've got the graphing calculator, we've got the graph, what more can the student do? They're taking that approach. So right now it's all over the place, and it's going to take a while before we sort of congeal towards any sort of, standards or anything, even on our campus, much less, industry-wide as far as academia. But no, it's interesting times.
I like that analogy a lot. It's probably the best answer I've heard on the question. I actually used graphing calculators for the final years of high school. And one of the things those recent models could do, I think this is 2007, 2008, is you could type in significant amounts of notes, essentially, that didn't even have to be related to the problem that you were trying to solve with the graph, but you could be writing notes in about chemistry, physics, this kind of thing. And they, the exams, the final high school exams in Australia let us take them into the final exams.
Oh, okay.
But, there was a limit to how many notes they could hold, and you had to be
Right.
kind of strategic about what you put in there. And you don't have a lot of time in an exam to be reading back through notes anyway.
Exactly.
But I thought it was quite a well done thing. Like you say, it's like, okay, let's assume that they have these calculators, they're very powerful, but also there's some notes. And then what can they do beyond that, right? What's the stretch? And that's how we get to like the next level of efficiency, productivity, knowledge, all these kind of things. The thing with AI, it makes me think you probably use or aware of like Wolfram Mathematica. I use that college myself in a math course, and the course was built specifically around it, and they let us use the internet and Mathematica in the final exam, which was quite bold. But the reality is, like, they'd written the exam in such a way that they'd pre-tested all the questions on Google and Mathematica. And yeah, you could probably get, I don't know, a third or a quarter of the marks just by brainlessly kind of Googling and using Mathematica. But actually, they just built the exam in such a manner that it went beyond what the tools were capable of, right? And I think what you're describing about AI is, it'd be great to see more, not necessarily every course or every program, but it'd be great to see more courses just everywhere that actually let people use AI in assessment, exam, essay type situations, and try to push the learning beyond the tool. But yeah, it's an interesting time. Really appreciate you jumping on today, Richard, and I'm hoping to come visit sometime again soon. Partly selfishly, I just love New Mexico. Western Texas, place. I could take a pass. I mean, I like Texas as a state, of course, but it was a long old drive. I was driving for like 10 hours across Western Texas, and it was just like the same old like ranches. It did rain a bit, which was nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd drive back through New Mexico any day. So cool. So thank you everyone for listening again, and don't forget to like, subscribe wherever you're listening to this, and we will catch you in the next Campus Conversation.